if you don't use patented drugs, surgeries, medical devices, etc., when you don't use that, you expose yourself to malpractice. Okay. And so that's what puts a lot of fear into other doctors as well, too. All right. They would love to learn more about herbs or nutrition, but if they write a prescription for a diet that includes more fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, and give you a few herbs and say, try this for your diabetes, then they're exposed to malpractice.
I'm energized, women lie, on God, numbers don't. Started talking about moves. That's right, when she got close.
We about to chop it up about health and wellness, because that's one of the most important things in life is taking care of yourself. So you see me right now, I got the Oprah water. There's many health benefits to that. But as you guys know, I mean, since COVID, a lot of people have noticed that the government does not have your best case of health in mind. So there's a lot of secrets, a lot of things they be hiding from us. They putting a lot of bullshit in our food. You know, a lot of things that we have in America that's in our food is banned across many other countries. You know, so me personally, I would say it's been about 8 years now. Matter of fact, it's been about 8 years since I moved to California. I was actually worried about my health. I had some health problems. So I started watching guys like Dr. Sebi, and I changed my diet. I turned into a vegan, and I seen so many changes. I had so many changes, very positive changes. And since then, I never looked back. I realized that all the things that we eating, all the things that we think is normal and healthy, it's not helping us out. Okay, so we're gonna check out this FDA. He was a former FDA worker, so he's gonna share some information. And let's see what bro is talking about. Make sure y'all hit the like button. Make sure y'all subscribe. Hit that hype button. We almost monetized, man. We almost there. I really appreciate all of y'all, everybody that's new to the channel. You know what I'm saying? I really appreciate y'all. If y'all new or you've been around, you know what I mean? Appreciate you from the bottom of my heart, man. We're going to keep doing this thing. Let's go.
Can you share simply, what is it that you do? And more importantly, who do you do it for?
What I do, I help people understand what health and healing is from a natural and holistic perspective. I empower them by guiding them towards steps and habits that help them become their own healer. And I do that simply because I've done it for myself. And why I do what I do, my mission is, I believe that this is what God wants me to do.
Like, just give an idea of the sort of challenges, problems people are going through when they tend to discover you.
The beautiful thing is I see everybody, young, old. I had a retreat on my farm in Miami. The oldest person there was 82 years old. The youngest person there was 17 years old. So I see everything from the beginning to the end. And most of the people who are coming to me are just sick and tired of being sick and tired. Whether that's inflammation in their body, whether that's a headache, whether that's acid reflux, whether that's cancer, high blood pressure, they're just tired of the answers that they're getting from what I would call modern medicine. And they're seeking alternatives, and my voice resonates with them. My perspective on health and healing resonates with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to get into it in this conversation and share some of your perspective, because I think you have a unique perspective. But for the person listening at home, if they are to internalize and truly listen to what you're about to share over the next couple of hours, what is going to be the impact, the benefit that they are tangibly going to see in their life after taking your advice?
Um, if the advice resonates with you, you're gonna feel more connected with yourself. And when you feel more connected with yourself, you'll feel more connected with others. You'll feel more connected with your body. A lot of people lose the connection between their mind and their brain. And that's why some people have anxiety, meaning they have an anxiety attack, but there's no reason to have an anxiety attack. The mind and the body is disconnected. They'll experience what they were supposed to experience, the feeling in their body supposed to experience. I believe that our bodies are simply the vehicle for our spiritual experience as a human being. And we're supposed to experience it through our senses.
That's actually pretty deep. When I think about when I fast, when I just do a water fast and I get rid of food, how connected I feel. It's almost scary in a way because it's something that I never experience normally. But it's because we're probably blocking everything by putting all this bullshit inside of us. I don't got the doctor terms. I'm gonna let him do that.
But I think most people's senses are dulled, especially our intuition, because we're so disconnected between what we're supposed to eat, how we're supposed to live, and how we're supposed to experience life. So the brain fog will go away. The belly will get flatter. You'll get more energy. You'll experience what it's like to be happy. Happy because of something, just happy because you're supposed to be happy. It's your default state. So I hope that that's the message that people get and understand that their healing is something that I believe that it's the sole purpose why we're here. I believe that we come here to heal something. And I believe that if we take our healing as our primary mission in life, I think that's where we're getting all our abundance and our blessings from as well, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is a special intention. When we go to your story, what you do, like even the fact that you work in health, that you you're a doctor, that is deeply personal in your story, really right from the beginning. And so I want to give people context. If we were to go back to your earlier years, your formative years, can you share the stories or the experiences that someone would have to be aware of in order to understand why you do what you do now?
Okay. Man, I always hate telling this part of my story, not because I don't mind sharing. It's just a matter of people identify with trauma, but they never really see the lesson in the trauma. And that's why I want people to see the lessons that I got of it. And so when I was 12 years old, I grew up in a very impoverished neighborhood. And I witnessed murders growing up. I lost friends. I had two friends that committed homicides. I lost my best friend and cousin to being chased by the police. And I went into my eighth grade year, really a troubled child. So much so that they ended up putting me in the mentally retarded class because of the trouble I was causing. But
man, this is pretty sad, but at the same time, I'm sure a lot of people have went through similar situations, so you'd be able to relate. So it's really beautiful that he's able to tell his testimony. This is definitely more of a God thing, not just food, not just healing.
nobody really asked me like what was going on with this 12, 13-year-old boy. And so as I'm sitting in that class and I'm realizing that I'm in this class because I'm noticing that the students look different. I'm noticing that everything about the class is different. And in that moment, as I'm hearing the teacher say, if Johnny had 4 C cells and Sally had 2 C cells, And she gave one to Johnny. How did I end up here? I just knew something was wrong. I'm like asking myself this question. And it was in that moment I raised my hand and I said to the teacher, I'm in the wrong place. And then she asked me my name. I told her, and she said, no, you're in the right place.
That's crazy. That just made me realize like my experience that I had at one point. I guess we all have similar experiences as human. My situation was a little different. This was after I got in trouble legally when I got an assault charge, fighting a couple people. And I was in a class because I was drinking at the time, and then they connected it with a prior charge that I had that was drug related. So then I had to do all these drug classes and all these situations with all these people from different age ranges. But the first thing I said is, I'm not supposed to be here. So that just reminded me of that. It had nothing to do with his story, but it was very similar. I could relate to that.
And so I sit there more and more, and I had a close friend of mine. He was cool, kid named Rocky. He was mentally retarded. But I always was like Rocky's protector. And when Rocky walked into the class, I knew I was in the wrong class at that point. And so I got up and raised my hand. I said, I'm in the wrong class. And she wanted me to sit down or I go to the principal's office. So I go to the principal's office. And while I'm in his office, I'm telling him what's going on. He refused to let me out of the class. You're in the right place. I'm like, I always got A's and B's. How can I be here? And finally, I told him, I was like, I'll never go back. I'll never come back to school because I don't there. And finally, he said to get the waiver. So mom comes, she signs the gets me out of the class. And so he then takes me to another class. And as he opens the door to the class, now I see these are all the smart kids. I'm like, okay, now I'm in the right place.
Yeah.
And so talk to you to the principal for a second. And she was like, ask me, have you taken pre-algebra? And I was like, no, I haven't taken pre-algebra yet. And she looks at him like, because the class is algebra. Okay, so imagine taking me from the class that I was in to taking me to algebra and I'd be algebra. And so she asked me if was I going to be in any trouble. And I said, no. At the end of the year, I ended up getting an A in the class. Yeah. And when I got ready to walk out of the class on the very last day, she told me, you know, you got set up to fail when you were brought to the class. And I was like, yes. And she was like, well,
that's really crazy. They've been doing that to us since we was in grade school. That sounds terrible. The man had so much potential. The child had so much potential, but they put him in the same class with, I don't even like using that word, but mentally ill people, man. That's crazy. That is crazy. Just because he had some problems, of course. He made some trouble, but that's where they put you? And then you have to get a signed note from your mother in order to get back to a normal class if you getting A's and B's all the time? That's crazy. That's crazy work, man. They want us to fail.
What you need to do every time it happens to you, because it's probably going to happen again. And so that, for me, was the first moment in my life where it helped me understand that no matter what happens in life, all the things that I have been through, no matter what happens, this is what you have to do. You have to get up. And then the second moment was when my grandmother passed. And, you know, my mother's family is from the South. And so my grandmother's house movie Soul Food. When you walk in, the aromas, the laughter, you know, the energy in there, cousins, uncles, aunts. It's a house, 50 people. That was my grandmother's house. And when my cousin called me and told me she was sick, and I didn't know she was sick, and I was playing basketball, and they never call me when I'm playing basketball because they know I'm just not coming. And when she called me, I knew something was wrong. So I walked into the house, And you can literally feel like the tension in the air. Nobody's laughing. Nobody gets up. Nobody greets you. People are crying. And as I walk to the back room, my family sort of makes a space for me. And they're like, she's been waiting for you. And so I grab my grandmother's hand and I look into her eyes and she's just staring up into the ceiling. But she knows it's me because she grabbed my hand. And my cousin whispered, like, my middle name is Jermaine. Jermaine is here. And she just started crying. And so I knew something was wrong. And so I started begging for her not to leave. And I was selfish because the more I begged, the more she cried. And so I said, Grandma, you can let go. Thank you for holding on for us. And, she passed away. But it was in that moment I said that my grandmother was 67, which for me, even though like I was a kid, I was like, this is too young. Because I had her mother, which was my grandmother, was 105. And she walked into the funeral. And when she walked into the funeral and kissed her daughter, who was 67, it just made me realize the way that my great-grandmother was living was going to be the voice and the thing that I did to help people live a longer life. Yeah.
That's beautiful right there.
There's like power in your story. And one of the things that, because you mentioned that the joy, like the joy that was in your grandmother's home.
Yeah.
Can you take us there? Like if I was a fly on the wall at one of those family dinners, what was that setting? Like what was the food on the table? Like what was bring us to that moment.
Yeah, so it was like cathartic and euphoric, humorous, and just loving. My grandmother had 12 children, okay? Never worked a day in her life. My grandfather was the breadwinner, of course. And they just did things the right way. And so everybody always had a place at my grandmother's house. That's why I say, even though like all my uncles and aunts were grown, like there was always 20 people living in a 4-bedroom house because people just wanted to be there. And then there was just always a place that people could go. And so when it was time to eat, my grandmother, who was the matriarch and the cook of the family, I mean, you can smell the aromas outside and it would just bring people, like people would pass by and stop. And so she had that gravitational pull, or my family had that gravitational pull where you was.
That's crazy how the generations have really switched up. I mean, I haven't seen a huge family setting like that in a long time. The food, the way the food was cooked, the way your grandmother cooked and throw down, like, not saying my mother didn't throw down, but it was just something different about my grandmother, man. And it was just something different about that generation, the men and the women. Like, even the way they communicated with children, they didn't have to yell or nothing. They just had a certain look in their face. And you knew what time it was. You knew that you better behave. It's beautiful.
See, like, this smorgasbord of food. Unfortunately, the food that we were eating was the same food that unfortunately took her life because she had colorectal cancer. Mm. And that was the very same food that we grew to love as well too. And so
and that was also the same stuff that they was feeding the slaves. Terrible.
Despite the beauty in the moment of sharing with cousins and aunts and uncles and the joy that we experienced from like having the love of our grandmother through food and through community, what I came to understand was, as beautiful as those moments were and as nostalgic as they were also the moments that created the very moment for losing my grandmother as well too.
Yeah. I can tell there's like a resilience about your character and like a stoicism about your character. And, when you speak of the joy and the fact that your grandmother's home, it sounds like it was almost like it was like a part of the community in a way.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
how safe people felt there.
Mm-hmm.
in that moment, because usually when we're younger, it's like we can't even fully process some of these events, especially like the painful, like traumatic events. We can't even fully process it.
Yeah.
When was it that you started to kind of put the pieces together, that the sickness, the illness, the disease that ultimately took your grandmother's life was linked to diet and what was on that dinner table? And like, when did that connection the show?
I'm gonna tell you when. So I graduate and I'm working in the hospital, and now I'm making all this real good money. And before I know it, I get on the scale and I've gained 45 pounds. Not only have I gained 45 pounds, but I go upstairs every day after, like, it's painful. I noticed that I have sleep apnea. I'm noticing that still, I got diagnosed high blood pressure when I was 16, which is interesting because that was right after I experienced all the trauma and then losing my grandmother. That's when I was diagnosed with high blood pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I'm working in a hospital, I'm one of the very few, copper tone doctors in there. And so every time somebody comes in there who looks like me,
I like that. That's smooth. He said the copper tone. I like that. That was a smooth way to say black.
they direct themselves toward me, even if I got nothing to do with what they got going on. I sort of became this person for the community, and people would just ask me questions and say, "Hey, there's this doctor. When you go, just look for him. Don't even worry about the other." So, building that, what I realize is that as I'm giving them advice, I feel like a hypocrite because I'm overweight. I have sleep apnea. I have high blood pressure. So honestly, this journey to save me because I'm trying to get alignment from feeling like a hypocrite.
That's a fact, though. That'd be the craziest thing when you go to a doctor and then you look at them and you like, how the hell you gonna get me in shape? How the hell you gonna make sure that I'm healthy when you look like that? When you look like you are completely disgusting right now, and you probably smoke cigarettes. You know what I'm saying? So I'm happy that he took that into account, and he thought about that, because it's a lot of hypocrites out here in all forms and all places. But most people just don't even care. They just about getting that money.
And so as I try virtually everything, I'm trying, Mediterranean diet, Atkins diet, Billy Blanks this, whatever works. And so it was really out of desperation. I said, you know what, I'm gonna try, using herbs and doing a little bit of yoga. We'll see what happens 21 days. Now you gotta remember, I grew up my mother's food, which eventually became my mother's food because my mother became the cook later. And so the idea of not eating animal products, that wasn't something that I was open to. It was just something I'll do for 21 days. At the end of it, we'll see what happens. But there was never an idea to say, after this 21 days, I'm never gonna go back. But after 21 days, I lost 17 pounds. My blood pressure went down. My girlfriend at the time noticed that the snoring was starting to go away. The inflammation started to go away. So because of my science, I said, okay, let's do it 3 days. 9 more days, 30 days, more improvement. 60 days, more improvement. So by the time I get around to 60 days, I've lost about 40 pounds.
Wow.
Okay, my blood pressure is not normalized. I look like I did when I was in college. I feel like I did when I was in college. And so it was that moment, then I started sharing that information with the people who would come in. And I'm noticing that they're getting the same results. Mm-hmm. So it was in that moment, it was like, okay, well, you said you was looking for the truth. This is the only truth I have. I know medication.
People will see these things, hear these, actually have small experiences themselves, but still try to negate the truth or try to tell themselves that it's not what it is, that it's not good to eat vegetables and drink water and take herbs and do helpful things, get sun, you know what I'm saying, and ground and all of that and fast. I argue with people all the time about it, but I'm at the point in my life where I don't argue actually anymore, because the person that wants to hear this is going to pay attention. The person that doesn't want to hear it, they're going to do what they're going to do anyway. It's a spiritual thing.
Without hundreds of thousands of prescriptions. I've seen a medication do this. You can't argue with that.
The death of your grandmother, but then also younger, actually you becoming a doctor, right? Like kind of paying that forward in a way, like the healing aspect of it. When you actually become a doctor, and it feels like from listening to you, it wasn't you expected it would be.
Not at all.
When you say not at all, can you describe, because I don't think people would, who haven't been a doctor would understand, add the context of what was it that you expected being a doctor to be versus the actual reality of what it was on the day to day.
See, I had this glorified movie version of what a doctor was, like watching Dr. House or something like that. I believe that I could go in the rainforest and like the medicine man and find a cure and then help cure people one day. Like, I believe that if I sat down with myself and really evaluated what the real cause of the disease was and figured that out, when I figured that out, I could take that information to my peers, the hospital, the FDA, which I worked at. And then when I shared it with them, they would be excited. They would be like, okay, you found something here. And then we will all work to start healing people. I don't know why I was that naive, because nothing really said that wasn't true, okay? And then you gotta also understand the neighborhood that I come from. I really don't understand what being a doctor is. I don't have the people, I don't know a doctor. I don't have the people around me to actually see and talk to and understand what it is. So I have to go through it to get to it. And so as I get in the hospital and I become an executive director and I work for the FDA and I'm taking things back to people and saying, hey, this worked for me. Let's implement this. How do we actual therapy? It was just resistance. It was like a rug. And so
that's not the agenda. The agenda was not that, which is hard to really believe that people can have such an evil agenda. It sounds crazy. It sounds like conspiracy, but when you actually speak to doctors, when it comes from doctors' mouths, people can still sit there and say it's conspiracy. Why? Because they're conditioned to not believe the truth, because the truth is not accessible to everybody. That's just how it goes.
So as I go through and see more and more of that, and I start to see that there's a potential that I can get in trouble for doing this. You know, there's a reason why drug. If you don't use patented drugs, surgeries, medical devices, etc., when you don't use that, you expose yourself to malpractice. Okay? And so that's what puts a lot of fear into other doctors as well, too. All right? They would love to learn more about herbs or nutrition, but if they write a prescription for a diet that includes more fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, and give you a few herbs and say, try this for your diabetes, then they're exposed to malpractice. Most people.
That's crazy work. And he's really telling the truth right now, because I've been to the hospital recently. I was getting treated because I had an accident that I got into. And I went to the pain management, told them the things that I'm taking, told them all the natural things that I'm on. And he said with a very funny voice, he was like, oh, your fancy herbs. You know, you won't be able to take your fancy herbs if you go and do this thing that he told me to, a procedure that he told me I should do, which was crazy as hell, which I ended up not doing. I could tell they was just trying to get the money out of it. But yeah, this is real life. This really goes on like this. Like, they're not going to give you what's going to heal you. Because There's no money in that. That's going to take all the money away from pharmaceuticals. If y'all start understanding, I can naturally heal myself. I have the ability, my body actually has the ability to heal itself. I can improve. I don't have to continue to take all of these drugs that are just going to continue to keep me down, that are going to have more problems and more side effects. But, when you say that, you sound crazy. You sound like, I don't know, like you're out of your mind. It's not what people normally do, especially not in America.
People don't know that. And so that was the big thing for me, that once I saw that it doesn't matter. I could come up for a cure for every disease. It would not matter. It's going to fall on deaf ears. And once I saw that, I was just like, all right, did I do all this for nothing?
Yeah.
Why
do you think that is? And the reason I ask is because you even mentioned it, like the naivety, the naivety that you came into it believing that, like, oh, I'm just gonna like heal people, save their lives. And I think
that's the same thing as people that get into like law enforcement and they're like, I'm gonna just clean up the whole environment, the whole neighborhood. We're gonna start doing good. We're gonna get all the crime up out of here. When they find out there's a whole system that goes on and there's a whole hierarchy and all of that, then they realize it's not much I can do. And then they either go with the system or they go do something else.
So we probably approach it with that same level of naivety. It's like, it's such a respected profession.
Yeah.
They save lives. They bring people back to good health. They return people to their fam. Like, that's the perception of what a doctor does. And it feels like the perception versus the reality, it's been distorted by like a system.
Yeah.
A system has distorted that. Why is that the case?
Well, I always tell people, if you want to understand the system, you got to understand how it was built. So if you look at how today's modern medicine or medical system was built, it began in the 1910s. They were to evaluate all of the medical schools and then come back and say, what do we need to improve? Well, the vast majority of the medical schools, after the evaluation, it said that most of them needed to be shut down. After that, the only approved therapy was going to be patented drugs, okay? Before that, they used herbs in hospitals.
Sir.
Before that, they used chiropractic care in the hospital. Before that, they used all of these holistic approaches to health and healing. After that report,
I think I don't know if he's going to mention it, but he might be missing the key factor was Rockefeller, who pretty much took over everything in America.
And all of the funding that came from Rockefeller to these medical schools, you could not use that. If it wasn't a patented drug, you could not use it, okay? So that's why today, it's the same thing. It's the same system. So even the medical schools, the pharmacy schools, the nursing schools, that curriculum is funded by the pharmaceutical contributors to all medical schools, pharmacy schools, and nursing schools. So everything they read in the book, it's literally funded by pharmaceutical companies. And whenever they try to deviate from that, the school will lose the funding. All right, schools lose their funding, then they can't do research. Okay, if they can't do research, they can't grow as an institution. They can't grow in their student body.
So basically, they have a whole bunch of things out there to heal y'all, and they have proven that it works. But you just can't know about it. Neither can the general population, because it literally would ruin the system if they do that. They have a whole system already set up to get bread. It is what it is.
All right, so that's why doctors, nurses, pharmacists, and other medical professionals, they don't even know that they're being indoctrinated by the pharmaceutical companies.
Mm-hmm.
They have no idea. I had no idea. I didn't know that all of the studies that make up the treatment algorithms for whether it be diabetes, hypertension, cancer, whatever, treatment algorithm means that you do this when they have this.
I will say I believe that he didn't know, but I do think that there's fancier doctors, doctors that pretty much their whole family, they come from a line of doctors, and they are rich already. They know what's up. They come from a long line of people that's been getting the money, and they're going to make sure you get the most expensive treatment. These are in the nice neighborhoods. I've been to some of these places in Beverly Hills, Sherman Oaks, all the crazy places that's really nice, and you have to spend a lot of money for all of this stuff, and you got to be a special person, damn near a celebrity. Yeah, they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing, but they know what they're doing sometimes at the lower levels too. Don't get it twisted.
Don't go outside of that. So when somebody has high blood pressure, you start off with essentially a diuretic, ACTZ, Lasix, etc. After that, you go to a ACE or ARB. After that, you could do another drug, and then another drug. Deviate from that. If you deviate from that, you have to prove why you So that's why I was naive. I was naive because I didn't know it was a system. The medical system was built who aren't necessarily invested in your healing. They're invested in you as a customer. And I'm not saying that because I'm, being prejudiced. I'm saying that because there are no cures.
That's interesting what he said right there. They have to go with the science. Think about that for a second. They have to go with the science. They cannot rely on God. That's what I just heard right there. It has to be something that a man created. It cannot be anything that God created. If that doesn't sound like an issue to you, I don't know. Like, it's very simple, but people complicate it. If we can't take stuff from nature that heals us, we should only take what man created and told us that works, which clearly doesn't work. That should be a red flag. But people are too brainwashed to even think that that makes any sense.
For the very simple things, there's no cure for acid reflux. There's no cure for hypertension. There's no cure for anything. You have to take something over and over and over. And I know that they're too intelligent for them not to have a solution if they wanted one. So that's why I was so naive, because I believed that, all right, well, I'm starting out school. There's no way this person who is finished and has been practicing for 2 decades is smarter. I need to go through school first. I go through school and I realize that they're just regurgitating what we learned in college. And now they're regurgitating what the pharmaceutical rep paired it to them. So now I realize what the system is, what the scam is. And once I realized that, it was like, okay, so you got to make a choice. You want to be a part of it or go off the reservation and go on your own path.
Yeah.
That's actually brave. Go with his gut and go with what actually works and actually cures. Many people don't.
It's like, it's unfortunate, but a lot of the times it feels like you can figure out something by following the money.
Yeah.
It's like, where's the money? Like that kind of shows you why things are the way they are. And, and you alluded to it, but this kind of, there's a tension and like a conflict start to settle in, because from your own personal experience, you start to see the impact and the benefit of just changing your diet and the way that you live your life on these health outcomes, on your own health outcomes. But then when you're showing up as a doctor, it's like, you're not allowed to prescribe any of that.
Right.
Is there, like, talk to me about that conflict settling in, and then ultimately, like, what is it like? It's like the straw that broke the camel's back. Like, what was there where you were like, okay, no, I can't do it. I have to go, like, I have to go in another direction.
From a place where I made it, I was the one who made it. And because of that, I didn't want to disappoint people and say, hey, I can't be a doctor anymore. Like, this isn't for me. And so I had that internal conflict, not only with the people I love, but with myself as well, too, because I'm like, I put 10 years into this. 10 years, 3 degrees, a lot of lost sleep. And I'm thinking to myself, you really about to throw all this is the first time I'm not broke anymore, too. So it was a lot of like internal conflict and living in my truth versus living in the reality of what the world is. Because I realized this is a system. I see most people, and I applaud people who are in the system trying to change the system from within. But this is like being inside of a matrix trying to change the matrix from within. So for me, I just, the moment for me was I had a moment where I was working with a physician and I was sort of able to do a little bit of what I was wanted to do with the physicians group that I was working with, but I wasn't able to kind of do everything I wanted. And so I was going to leave the job because I'm just like, I can't do this. We had a patient who came in who got addicted to opioids. And that day when they came in, they were screaming, you be addicted to these drugs. It wasn't me, but that moment, just drug dealers.
Wow.
And especially
The first ever heard anybody say that. So I've said that before. I said, what is the difference between people that's on these pharmaceuticals that supposedly need it and the people that take it to get high? I always said that. I was like, what is the difference? It doesn't actually make any sense. It's the first time I heard a doctor. So, yeah, that's wild to hear that. I mean, I knew I was on to something, but it's wild to hear the actual doctor out of his own mouth say, yeah, we're drug dealers. That's what we are.
opioids kill about 100,000 people a year. It's one of the leading causes of death for Americans. It was that moment I knew I was going to leave, but I just didn't know what was next. So I took some time off.
So that's crazy work right there. The thing that is supposed to get you right, that's supposed to be medicine, kills. It's one of the leading killers in America. That's crazy.
Make sure y'all like, subscribe, share the page and all of that.
To y'all that are new to the page, my name is Youngniss. I'm an artist, I'm a songwriter, I'm a content creator. I'm also a real person just like you. I go through real issues. So I just wanted to give y'all some positivity and let y'all see my real personality for a second.
If nobody's told you before, I need you to know life is about belief. And belief starts with the creator. It starts with God. So in order to see something in reality, to see something happen fast in your life, it depends on how much you believe in it and how strong that belief is. Now, I need y'all to say this, man. Repeat this with me and feel it in your heart. I'm surrounded by endless opportunities with overflowing resources and divine favor. And with the God-given wisdom, discernment, and discipline, I don't just maintain them, I multiply them. Continue to say that. Continue to believe it in your heart, in your mind, in your spirit. And watch your life transform.
Men lie,
Women lie.
numbers don't lie.
Make sure y'all go get y'all NDL hoodie, man. Get all y'all NDL apparel. I'm gonna drop the link. Y'all see the joint right here. We got the good maroon joint. You see the established 2014 for y'all that know. Numbers don't lie.